Welcome to the Black and White Table Talk, real talk behind the whistle. Today we're sitting with Danny Rager, one of my closest friends in the basketball and volleyball realms, and outside of basketball too. I consider you a friend, family.
That's the beauty of officiating.
We've met some of our closest friends and family here, right? Friends that become family.
Right.
And Danny's also, he's a state finals basketball official, volleyball official for decades, right? How long?
Basketball, 36 seasons just completed, and volleyball entering in my 23rd.
Dang. High level, collegiate official. Danny comes with perspective, and he's lived the culture in real time. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but there's an incident that happened I hope you'll share with us. But Danny, would you introduce yourself to us, please? Let us know what.
I've been doing this a long time. It's in my blood. I love being an official. Everybody doesn't have the mentality for it, but that just was wired that way. And I enjoy it, and I want to be good at it. And I've worked with some of the best. I've been trained by some of the best. Had some wonderful opportunities. Try to get it right every night. Try to give the coaches, the players, and the spectators the level of professionalism and expertise that they deserve. I don't have a lot of tolerance for people who just go out there and don't bother to learn how to do it and to do it properly. And not just my idea of properly, but there's room for personality. But I love doing it, and I'm at this point where I know I'm approaching. I'm not ready to admit I'm there yet, but I'm approaching the twilight. And I want to give back. I want to be the kind of guy that guys want to work with and they walk away saying, man, I learned. He helped make me better. He helped me enjoy this more. He helped me get it right. And I've had some experience with that. It's very rewarding. It's worth more than any dollars that I've made doing it.
Yeah. Where does that part come from in you, Danny, that wants to get back in?
And I'm a teacher at heart. I've been 20 years. I was a pastor of a church. I've been in ministry for 4 decades. I remember. I've always been. I want to leave a lasting impact, even if it's not readily apparent, but that long term of, just that when I walk away from somebody, I've hopefully made their world a little bit better instead of a little bit worse.
Yeah.
And so, I'm passionate about it. I want other people to be passionate about it. And when I meet somebody who's passionate about it, I want to help them succeed. I've had the opportunity to watch. I didn't go as far as I would like to have gone. I never made it to Division I in basketball, got right to the edge, and for whatever reason, and lots of them, and there's no sour grapes, but I watched a lot of my close friends succeed. Ron Groover has just worked another NCAA men's championship. I worked with Ron this very first high school varsity game. So many of those guys, Ron and Chuck Jones and so many others that you see on TV all the time. I came up with those guys, and we went to camps together, and we learned together, and it happened for them, and I'm excited for them.
Yeah.
There are guys even now, younger guys who I get excited when they get. I'm happy for. I want to work the state tournament. I want to work the state finals. Yeah. If I don't get a chance, I'm happy for the guys who
you've touched
and who have looked back and said, "Danny, you helped me get here." Oh, yeah. And so I just want to be that. Yeah. And so I like it. Just I don't know if I'm wired that way or what.
Yeah. Well, you are, and you're that person, and you've been that person for me, and I appreciate that. So I mean, there's a lot that I consider you a mentor. I consider you a teacher and someone who supported my growth. And there's lots of us that you've made that mark. So, but something happened a while ago. Would you mind sharing that incident with us?
So this was I was probably 5 or 6 years in, so about 30 years ago, but I was at South Forsyth High School doing a spring AAU girls tournament, one of those days where you're working all day. And as is not uncommon for the case to be, you had two very different teams. I think one of the hardest kinds of basketball games to referee is when you have two very different style teams, dare I say even culturally mixed, from different, to play a different style of basketball, a different mindset of basketball, an inner city team that wants to be more physical, that wants to run and gun, versus maybe a team that's going to play more fundamental, play more of a strategic zone, that kind of thing, don't want contact. And so this is what you had. We had a team from Gwinnett County, and again, this is Gwinnett County 30 years ago versus Gwinnett County today, and from downtown Atlanta. And it was a lot of angst, and the girls from Gwinnett were winning the game to the disdain and chagrin of the team from Atlanta. And so they were getting heated with each other, and some hard fouls, some kind of borderline dirty play, and I was stepping in and said, not going to do it. So about 4 minutes to go, and the team from Atlanta actually had taken, I want to say had taken maybe a 10-point lead, but it was getting worse. And so I kept trying to address it, hey, stop that. And so we had a foul, and it was a hard foul, almost dirty. And we're lining up to shoot, and I said, that all stops now. Because one of the players, even from the Gwinnett team, looked at her teammate and kind of congratulated her on her excessively physical play, and then said they were going to do it again. And I just stepped in and said, girls, we're going to play basketball, or I'm going to stop this. I'm going to start throwing people out. I said, this is nonsense, and it stops now. Well, the coach took a timeout, and apparently one of the girls went over and told the coach that I cursed at her. The irony of that is I'm a pastor, and
right.
I don't curse, and I certainly don't curse at teenage girls, but I don't curse at anybody.
Right.
And so the coach starts walking out across the court to confront me. He says, my girl says you cussed her. I said, Coach, I didn't cuss anybody. I don't cuss. I said, you need to go back to your bench, because I won't let a coach walk out on the floor. I said, you have to go back to your bench, and he wouldn't go. I said, Coach, I'm not going to ask you again. Go back to your bench, and he pointed his finger in my face and said, don't cuss him. I said, Coach, last chance. And I tried to walk away from him. He stepped in front of me, so I popped him with a technical foul.
Okay.
I whacked him. And I said, now go back to your bench and sit down. And tried to walk away from him. He kept stepping in front of me. And I kept trying to get away from him. I said, Coach, he kept saying, don't you cuss my girls. You don't cuss teenage girls. I said, Coach, I didn't cuss anybody. I said, I don't know what they told you, and I don't care. I didn't cuss anybody. I said, I understand. Let's go. And he just kept stepping up. I said, so now I hit him again and threw him out. I said, now you got to go. And I tried to walk away from him, and he didn't want to let go. And I kept moving, and he just kept stepping in front of me. And finally, I said, Coach, don't say another word. You need to just leave. I'm going to stop the game.
Yeah.
Because there's no security at these games, right? And so I said, turn and go so we can finish the game. And I stepped away, and he stepped back in front of me again, put his finger in my face. And I said, don't you cut. And I said, that's it. Ball game's over. Looked at the other team, said, you win the game. And I turned to walk off the court. So we were about mid-court. And I'm at South Forsyth High School in the old gym, which is now a volleyball gym at South Forsyth. Angie Embry was the coach at South Forsyth. She went to Collins Hill, and then went to Miami, and then came back to Norcross. And
Coach, the famous Maya.
So she was there, yes. And she had a player before Maya who wasn't as good as Maya, but was almost as good. And this was her father who was coaching this team. And so the irony of that is his daughter would go on to play for Angie. But anyway, Angie was there. And so I just began to walk off the court. And so I walked toward the steps. They have the gym sits down about 3 steps, and it goes up to where the foyer and the concession stand and all of that is. And I'm thinking, where can I go? Because I could feel the guy behind me, and I didn't want to stop and turn around. I was trying to get away from him, not confront him anymore, but I could feel that he was following me.
Yeah.
And so I reached the edge of the court, kept going, went up the stairs, and at this point I thought, okay, here are my options. And it's amazing how much goes through your brain in just a matter of split seconds. And I said, I could go into the bathroom. That would be foolish because you get hurt in there.
Right.
And go outside, then there's no witnesses out there, potentially, or anything. So my choice was, I'm going to go in a concession stand where there's people in there who can see what's going on. So I went right across the hall into the concession stand. The door was open. And as I stepped through the door, he hit me with his forearm across the back of my neck. And it stunned me and sent me flying forward toward the table. And I put my hands out to stop and wound up on the floor on my hands and knees. And he's behind me and he puts me in a full Nelson. And he starts trying to bang my face off the floor. I mean, repeatedly, 4, 5, 6 times. And I can taste the blood from the blow because he came across and hit me on the side of the face when he came across my back and he came across here. I guess maybe he swung, I don't know. But I can taste the blood. I'm stunned. I'm seeing stars. And I'm trying to keep myself from getting smashed against the concrete floor. I can hear Angie trying to pull him off of me. Angie had followed and she's trying to pull him off of me. And finally, she and somebody else got him off of me. And I turned around and without even opening my eyes, I just said, "Call the police." And so I sat there and he left. And his assistant coach came in and said, "You're well with it." He hands me his card. He's a Lilburn police officer. He hands me his card and he says, "Now you'd be well within your rights to press charges, but I hope you don't." I said, "Well, where were you?
Right.
Why didn't you stop him?"
Right.
I said, "Maybe I'll press charges against you too."
Negligence or something.
For dereliction of duty or whatever.
Right.
And but I said, "Whatever, man." I said, "I think you should just walk away from me right now." And so we called the police. I filed a report. He was picked up later. Actually took him to court in Forsyth County.
Good for you.
And he showed up that day with a bunch of his players, and my mom happened to be in town from out of town, and they came to court with me. And I just, I try to live by a biblical Christian standard and forgiveness and all that, but forgiveness doesn't mean that people get a pass on bad behavior. There are consequences to actions, even if you don't hold against. So I was like, people are like, "What are you going to do?" And I said, I feel like I have to press charges, not just for me, but for every referee out there. This has to stop. And so I pressed the charges, and we addressed the judge. And I told my mother, I said, "If this guy comes in here defiant and trying to blame me for what happened, I'm going to go as far as I can. I'm not seeing prosecute and put in jail." So I told the judge the whole story. I just told it to you and told him what happened. And the man started saying, "I want to apologize," and all. And the judge stopped him, and he goes, "Sir, you need to stop talking, first of all." And he read him his rights, like we've heard on cop shows.
Yeah.
You have the right to remain. And something happened and triggered in me, and then it got really real, beyond to a level that I hadn't even considered it yet. I'm like, this guy's in trouble.
Yeah.
And so we talked some more, and the judge, and I thought he was genuinely remorseful and repentant.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between the two. It's one thing to be sorry for what you've done because you got in trouble.
Right.
It's another thing to be sorry and repentant and say, "I'm going to change."
Yeah.
Repentance means change. It means turn and go the opposite direction. And so I really sensed that he was, and everything everybody told me about this man it was so incredibly out of character for him that, there are some, we've all dealt with coaches who, they're not good people. But this guy, they said, everybody was just blown away because it's like it came from nowhere. And so I'm rattling my mind between the dilemma between he can't get away with this, not just for me, But I really was thinking, for all officiating, this has to stop. And I don't want to ruin this guy's life. I'm okay. And so I expressed that to the judge, and the judge turned and looked at him and said, "Sir, he said, are you fully understanding?" I said, "This man, all he'd have to do is say the word and you're going to jail."
Right.
He said, "You need to express, your appreciation that he's willing." Because what I tell him is, "Sir, Judge, I said, I'm not interested in ruining this man's life." I said, "But he's got players sitting over here, players who were there that day. They need to understand that no matter what I did, his behavior is completely intolerable and unacceptable. They need to understand that referees are not the enemy and that you can't act like this." And I said, "So I want him to acknowledge right now in this courtroom, for the record, that I didn't do anything wrong, that he was 100% wrong, that he shouldn't have done this, and they should understand that. I also want him to write a formal letter of apology, not just to me, but to my supervisor and all basketball officials, acknowledging." And the judge said, "I think that's fair." And he asked him if he was willing to accept the terms. It was a couple years later, I was at Walton High School doing a high school tournament. And I was getting ready for my 2 games, and I walked into the restroom, and it's one of those, I walked up, my head was down, I looked up, and I was this close to the guy. And I was like, I recognized him right away, he recognized me. And he was the cordial, kind, soft-spoken man everybody told me he was, but that wasn't my first experience with him. So, yeah, it was 30 years ago, but it's shaped me today to the point that, I tell people, there was one other incident where a player in a rec league game hit me.
Wow.
And so I tell people, guys say, "Why do you do that? Why are you so quick to stop?" I said, "Because I've been hit twice, and I'm not going to allow there to be a third time."
So it's impacted you.
Oh yeah.
In how you manage and officiate.
I draw a strict line and say we're not crossing that. And so I'm going to be proactive. I'm not going to let it escalate to where I'm going to get rid of you. I'm going to,
So how did that impact you at home? And I mean, did you bring any of that psychologically home or emotionally home? I mean, doesn't it have to some extent, Danny?
I think one of the things that's made me a successful referee is that I'm able to separate. I learned it helped me even in ministry, because I used to I would tell myself all the time, I said, that they used to say to us, "They're not yelling at you, they're yelling at the stripes. They don't know you."
Yeah.
And to a point, that's true. It's when that goes beyond that, and now it becomes a personal attack. That's when you have to react in a whole different way.
Yeah.
And so in ministry, it was the same way. I used to tell them when people would, people may not, think this way, but sometimes church folk can be pretty nasty too, because we're all human.
Yeah.
And I used to tell myself, they're yelling at the office, they're not yelling at you. They're yelling at the clerical collar, or they're voicing their frustration or whatever. And so it really did, it helped me in that way in dealing with, so that I could address issues and address the heart of the matter versus the raw emotion of the moment. And I've tried to take that even in a basketball game. I haven't always been successful in that because of my own emotions, but I think I've been able to maintain some composure in that. But at the same time, I have drawn a line saying we're not getting to that point again.
Yeah.
And you can't totally prevent everything, but yeah, as far as PTSD kind of thing, or long-term anxiety, I'm just wired different. It's like people say all the time. I've said when I leave officiating, I plan on leaving my own terms. I try to get my sons into officiating, and they don't want to do it because of people and parents yelling at them. Yeah. And I tell them, I said, I understand that goes with the job. I said, they say, well, how do you deal with it? I said, I'm not going to let those people run me away. I'm going to get rid of them.
Yeah, right.
If they bring it to that point, they're not going to run me off.
Right.
Because I like doing this. And I've worked hard to be good at it.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but good at it. And so I'm not going to let them run me off.
Do you think there's a perfectionist trait in most of us as officials?
Yeah, we want to be right. I think anybody, and there's a difference between thinking you're right all the time and wanting to be right all the time. The one who thinks he's right all the time, that's arrogance. That thinks he can't make a mistake. That thinks whatever he thinks whatever he does is okay, and everybody just needs to accept that. I mean, we miss calls. We have good days and bad days. We're human like anybody else. We sometimes maybe we say something we shouldn't have, even if we meant well or whatever. That's a difference with that. But it also, the nature of our job requires us to have a high level of confidence,
right,
and a high level of self esteem. That it's a thin line between self-esteem and arrogance, and so you have to balance those things, and you're constantly tweaking those. And every situation is different, but every time I step on the floor, I want to be perfect. I know you can't be.
Right.
And guys told me, and I believe it, and I've said it. Hey, the time when you call a perfect game, quit, because you probably won't ever do another one.
Right.
If you're not making mistakes, it's because you're not working. But that's not an excuse. And I don't like repeating my mistakes.
Right.
And I want to learn from my mistakes. And I want to get the call right. Whether it's a judgment call that I interpret the right way, or certainly I want to be right in terms of the application of the rules.
Yeah.
And I may not always like the rule,
right,
but my job is to enforce the rule.
Yeah. Do you think there's a big difference between volleyball and basketball in terms of the cultures?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're competitive. I think when I see guys who have done basketball or another sport or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, that volleyball's stealing," I get offended by that. That bothers me because it's like, well, can you manage alignments? Do you know front row and back row? Those kinds of things. No, I said, don't tell me.
What are you talking about?
I said it's different, and so it's a very different thing. But the players and the coaches come at it with the same competitive fire that a basketball player. They're just different because volleyball's a non-contact sport. They stay on their own side of the net. So you don't have bodies bumping into each other like you do in basketball. That's one of the things that makes basketball, because there is 10 players in a confined space fighting for the same space, and they're bumping into each other. And we have to, as the officials in the game, we have to make a determination of what's legal and what's not. And there's a fine line sometimes. And there are so many, there are no automatics, or very few automatics. And so I'm 5'9", and what are you, 6'2", 6'3", whatever. That height difference, if I'm trying to guard you or you're defending me, it's going to create a different dynamic than if I was 6'3" and we were the same size.
Yeah.
But I can't penalize you for being big any more than I can reward me for being small. I can't penalize you for being more talented, more skilled, or more athletically inclined than I am. And yet, because you're bigger, more athletically inclined, more skilled, you can withstand a greater level of contact than I can. My contact on you is not going to be as impactful against you because of your size and skill level as for me, who's really not very good at the game. People don't understand that.
Yeah.
And that's the subjectivity of officiating. So basketball becomes, and of course you got mom and dad and they're coaching everybody out there saying, that's my baby, right? And they see the game through the lens of, that's my baby. Yeah. I see the lens of the game through, that's two players opposing, and I have no skin in the game, right, from that standpoint. So people don't understand that one of the makes it so difficult for a coach and a player versus a referee is we watch the game through a different lens completely. And we're looking at the same game, but we're looking at different things within the game. And they don't understand that. And so they think we're being inconsistent and say, no, that's how that play happened. And so and again, there's a lot of gray area in there. So, and a lot of opinions and a lot of people who think they know how to do the job that don't.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was doing a basketball game at Rockdale County one day, and they were playing a team that was considerably better than them. I think they wound up playing the state championship. They were very good. And I had looked at their scores, and their average score, they won by 30, 35, 40 points. They were beating Rockdale by 35 points as we were going to the fourth quarter. Mm. And I was the crew chief, so I was throwing the ball in and start the fourth quarter to possession. And during the break between the third and fourth quarter, I'm standing there holding the ball, just waiting. And of course, you know, one of the things that makes basketball so much harder is the proximity to the court. Nobody's closer to the players and the coaches to the game in any sport there is than basketball. Hockey's just as close, but they have a wall between them. Basketball has no wall. Yeah. It's just, so when they want to step out, they step out. And so this guy was sitting, he'd been really vocal, screaming ridiculous stuff all game long, even though his team was winning by 30 points. And so I'm standing with my back to him, and he says, "You're having a pretty bad game, aren't you, Mr. Ref?" And so I'm just in my brain, I'm going, what a moron. But I try to ignore him. And he says it for a third time. And so some would say I shouldn't have done it, but very calmly kind of looked over my shoulder and said, "No, actually, I'm having a pretty good game." And he said, "Well, not from where I'm sitting." And I said, "Well, you don't know what you're looking at." And he said, "You saying I don't know basketball?" I said, "No, I'm saying you don't know basketball refereeing. I'm saying your team's winning by 35 points in their gym and nothing satisfies you. And I'm telling you now that if you bark at me one more time, you will miss the end of this game." And so it was a very calm conversation. But even he I heard him recoil when I said, "No, I'm not saying you don't know basketball. I'm saying you don't know basketball refereeing. Come out and referee with me and learn what's going on."
Yeah, that's one of the things I wish that, you know, we could entice more people to try to do, right, is to officiate, you know what I mean? And baseball has, you know, there's some places in Texas, I think, where if you yell at a referee or get kicked out of a game, you have to umpire a match.
Like the rec league stuff.
Yeah. So, you know, I wish we could get more people.
Anybody who's ever had to do that will sit there and go, "I never knew."
Right.
I never knew. Because I tell people, I'm perfect from the stands too. I have never missed a call from them. I'm 100% from up there.
Yeah, that's one of the things we definitely, I think, can do a better job of is humanizing us as people. And I mean, the job is hard. You know, there's a lot of complexity. You know, you mentioned a lot of things today. You know, the angles that we see the game at, not just from a referee's perspective that impact us making calls, but just, you know, each participant has their own angle, yep. Right? I mean, we're going to make half the people angry with every call we make probably, but it's a hard job. I think the more of us that do it or that try it will recognize how hard it is. You know, I got to have you back, Danny. There's so much we didn't talk about. You know, I know we need to do have a discussion about how we can change things and make things better for us. But we're hitting right at our stop right now. But I appreciate you for coming in here and talking about accountability. It's not punishment, right? I mean, it's protection for us. Okay. You know, it's for everybody. It's not just for us, really. It's for fans.
The greatest amount of freedom a person can enjoy is within the framework of boundaries.
Yeah.
Because boundaries, they don't just limit us, they also protect us.
No doubt about it.
And so when we understand that, you know, we don't always like it. We'll push up against it. I get it. And I'm the same way. But, and there's a verse in the Bible that talks about no discipline is pleasant for the moment, but if you submit yourself to it, in the end, it will yield the peaceable fruit of righteousness. There's another proverb that says, the kisses from a friend, or the kisses from the enemy are much worse than the wounds of a friend. I don't ever want to see them to slash, but, how do you respond especially when a seasoned official tries to talk to you about a play? I tell guys all the time, so when I say, hey, tell me about what you saw in that play, the trigger needs to go in, and I learned the trigger. When a referee asks me about a play, they're usually not asking me about one they think I got right. I might come and say, man, that was a great call, you got that one right. But if I come and say, man, tell me what you saw on that right away. So are you going to get defensive, or are you going to be willing to say, okay, maybe something happened?
Your mentoring, your discussion helps us get better as a cadre. That's definitely for sure. I mean, what you've seen in 30 years it can't help but support us and help us grow. You've seen what sports can build in kids, right? I mean, so, and you've supported that. But we don't want to repeat those scenarios that have happened in the past. And hopefully by this discussion, we're going to get better. We're going to learn more about accountability and respect, and really what behaviors we allow and tolerate. It's what builds our culture. So that's where what we're trying to do here is support that and change that a little bit. And we got to have you back on to talk about some other stuff, man. Because there's so much stuff, man. You got an open invitation. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
We got to end the black and white table talk for now. So we'll be back.
Yep.
Thanks, Danny.
Yep.